This episode is brought to you by Yin and Fang Toothpaste. Yin and Fang Toothpaste is a 4-ingredient toothpaste with coconut oil, baking soda, cacao butter, and nanohydroxyapatite. It's non-toxic, there are no preservatives, it has low abrasivity, which preserves your teeth, it supports your oral and gut microbiome, and it's remineralizing. We ditched the tubes to help the planet, and instead, Yin and Fang comes in a sustainable, zero waste packaging and delivery system. Get yours at yinandfang.com.
All right, welcome to the third episode. We are super excited about this one.
Yeah.
Today's topic is about toothpaste. And toothpaste is something that rolls into our entire holistic journey of our family and how we live our life and select products and consume various things, and whether they're for hygiene or for food or cleaning. Toothpaste is just one of these products that's come on our radar that required some critical review. And we think we have lots to share with everyone else about toothpaste.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay. Well, I think it's important to frame the context of the conversation. If for anyone that is new to us, we basically have changed a lot of things in our life over the past, really, it's been a constant evolution.
Yeah.
Really, it's never really started or stopped. So, we have become more critical of everything we put in our home or use over the last, ever since we've met, really.
Yeah.
And I would say about 2 years ago, I was in the middle of a curriculum for the American College of Integrative Dental Medicine. And it really ignited a fire within me to look at oral hygiene products and the things I use in dentistry. We had been talking about other products we use or foods we consume. And when I started this program, it really was intensive about the types of food we eat, the products we use, how they might be affecting our systemic health.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started to look at toothpaste, it started a conversation between the two of us. And really, there was a lot to consider and a lot to discuss and a lot to learn.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a natural evolution for us as someone that's focused mostly on nutrition, but in general, like kind of an integrative, holistic lifestyle. And I'd been coaching people, and I was kind of in the middle of a big shift. I started a little bit before you, but it made sense because I was already looking at, the ingredients in our food, and we'd already made a huge shift in our home away from like takeout and prepackaged things and moving away from kind of like the standard American diet, even though we'd always eaten quote unquote healthy. And just being more mindful of, once we started having kids, also for me, that was a big shift. You look at life through a different lens when you're trying to decide what things you want on and around your baby. And so, it was kind of this next step. And, we'd done food, we had cleaning products, we'd completely done an overhaul of that when we started having kids, and continued to get rid of things like plastics and things like that in our home. And the more I understood and the more I kind of dove into the holistic space, the more I realized it wasn't just food, it wasn't just cleaning, it was really everything. There's lots of toxins in our environment. In the modern world, there's just a lot of chemicals, there's things in our air, our water, our food, and the everyday products we use. And so eventually, obviously, because you're a dentist and because we take oral care seriously, it made sense to address the toothpaste. And once we kind of started going down that rabbit hole, it was something we couldn't ignore. And so we started looking for more holistic brands and researching the ingredients. And, to be honest, I had never turned over a toothpaste tube before. For as much as I read ingredients for things, a lot of those things on the back of the toothpaste tube I just didn't know anything about. And I think we have a real like strong ability to compartmentalize things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So even though I was looking at like food was really obvious, if I didn't understand what was in it, it had to go. Um, I think it's kind of a protective mechanism we use where it's like, well, this category is different until you can address it, right? And so we got to that point, and once we dove in, it was very clear, like I couldn't even pronounce half the things on the toothpaste tube, and then you open up like, okay, well, what's in the holistic brands, and and then yeah, so we slowly started learning, and researching and finding out that there was a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
And even in the holistic space, to be honest. And I think a lot of what happens in the holistic space is it's taken on by people that maybe are not in dental care necessarily. Some of them are, but there's a whole other knowledge that we had combined with that kind of background that we both have, to look at not just understanding the body as one systemic whole,
Mm-hmm.
but also like the surfaces of the tooth, and what long-term oral health looks like, and um, abrasivity, things like that maybe other people that didn't have kind of a dental care background wouldn't have taken into consideration when evaluating toothpaste.
Yeah, 100%. Love everything you're saying there. So, when it comes to toothpaste, there is this relatable dilemma. And what I mean by that is nobody wants to get a cavity, right? I
Right.
mean, like no one wants to have dental work. It's just I've been drilling on people's teeth for my whole career for 20 years now, and it's extremely rare that someone comes in and says, "Yes, I need dental work," right?
Right.
So, what I mean by relatable dilemma is I think so many people are now saying, what am I putting in my body? What are these ingredients? But the dilemma is I really don't want to get a cavity or, gum disease or lose teeth. And so even for someone like yourself that's very knowledgeable of reading ingredient labels,
Mm-hmm.
right? They flip it over and they go, I don't know what these things are, but maybe it's actually I need this to keep my teeth.
Yes.
And right, so if you're not familiar with the kind of dental research material that's out there, you kind of feel like you don't have that um, you know lifeline to plug into and go, how do I critically evaluate this ingredient?
Sure.
Yeah. So, and I think Google helps a ton, right? There's lots of information. It's just exploding with more and more information. But at the end of the day, it's like I don't want to lose my teeth, but I also don't want to put maybe some of these ingredients in my body. And when you kind of boil this down to the core dilemma,
Mm-hmm.
it's that there's toxic ingredients in toothpaste
Yes.
that do not have therapeutic benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we really got to the meat of that, we started talking about, well, what are these ingredients? What are they needed? And we were able to start striking through many of them, and also looking at these alternative ingredients other brands are now using, and critically evaluating those. And then it came to the bottom line. We just started looking and looking and looking and trying other products, and yeah, we're really never able to get content with something, right?
Yeah. And I think another point to say with your what you mentioned about a relatable dilemma is, I think it can be overwhelming. Or I know it can be overwhelming, especially right now. We have access to so much information, and the truth is, we are kind of living in a toxic soup, And I think that is the more that your eyes are open to that, the more. I think there's like this want to embrace it, but also just overwhelm. So, and you can't avoid everything, right? You can't
Yeah.
just go live in a bubble and not have any toxins ever around you. So I think people pick and choose, and I think that is actually the right strategy, because otherwise, you get overwhelmed and you're going to freeze and just think you can't live in the world, right? So, but the way that I think about kind of filtering through some of this information and trying to avoid toxins is and this is what I tell my clients too, is like, you can't avoid everything, but the things that you do on a regular basis, the things that you're doing every day, those things go to the top of the list. Those things are things you need to change, right? And so toothpaste, brushing your teeth is something that you do ideally 2 to 3 times a day, maybe after every meal. Um, and, I think a lot of people don't realize that you swallow a good portion of your toothpaste, and or you're just absorbing it into
Yeah.
your bloodstream. So there are warnings on toothpaste containers, toothpaste tubes, to not swallow very much and all this stuff, because there is toxic stuff in there.
Yeah.
But the truth is, we do absorb and swallow a much larger quantity. Even adults, kids are swallowing probably all of it, but adults are swallowing a much larger portion than they probably believe. And so something that you're doing 2-3 times a day, every single day for the entirety of your life, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that adds up. The same thing, like if you drink coffee every morning, well, your coffee needs to be a really high quality coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be mold free, it needs to be pesticide free, because that's something that you're doing every single day. So toothpaste, while we kind of, I think, for some people, it's kind of this like, I don't know, like you don't think of eating it, but really you are eating it. And it's kind of this like thing you do, but maybe you're not thinking about, you're just going to grab whatever tube. It really is something that should be kind of at the top of your priority list, because it does have a lot of toxins in it, in conventional toothpaste, and you are doing it so frequently.
Yeah. I think that's a great point to just hammer home one more time, especially for anyone that's a parent, right? Because you watch your kids and you're like aware that you might be aware that the back of traditional toothpaste have a poison control hotline number on them in case your kid got into the toothpaste and ate it, right? And so you're constantly going, okay, brush your teeth. We don't want you to get a cavity. Like brush, 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 brush. Now spit it out, spit it out, spit it out, right? But the point I wanted to hammer home is that, we have glands in our mouth that are fast to absorb things we put in our mouth. Think about if you're having a heart attack, if someone's having a heart attack, you put a nitroglycerin tab under the tongue because it's the fastest route of absorption in the body. So, and there's great studies to show that you absorb toothpaste, right? So that's an important point. Just to hammer home, like, it is important to look at the toothpaste. And I love that you bring this health coaching aspect to it, because what you say to your clients about the things you do routinely, these little things are cumulative, they add up over time. So hopefully we've really underscored this, the kind of the purpose of this podcast is that toothpaste falls in this category of, we use it all the time, we need to just have a critical review of it.
Yeah, it's important. It's an important thing to get right,
Yeah.
like you said, to make sure that to prevent cavities, and to also make sure you're not just daily poisoning yourself,
Yeah. And I'm going to guess that most people that listen to us on this platform are health focused.
Right.
You are not healthy if your oral health isn't in check.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. I can't tell you how many people I've met that I have this, just tons and tons of stories I could share with people that, like an engineer that always ran a little bit high body temperature, like one of the smartest people I've ever known, patented tons of things in the world. And he knew he had tons of like root canals with chronic pathology and stuff. He got his mouth healthy and his body temperature went back to a normal range. And just one of many stories of like, oral health is part of systemic health. If you're not healthy in your mouth, you're not there.
Yeah, it's a window into what's going on internally. It's something that you can physically see, like your skin.
Yeah.
But a lot of times there's, if there's infection in your mouth, it affects the rest of your body, right? If your oral microbiome is unhealthy, it's, there's a direct link to your gut microbiome, and those two things, the digestive system, the beginning and the kind of end point of the digestive system, that really controls all of your health. So
yeah, and the counter perspective is equally true, right? You can't have oral health without systemic health. There's actually really a cool study where they restricted people from exercise for a couple of weeks, and then they were checking the oral microbiome,
Yeah.
and it got worse. And then they reintroduced exercise, and it got better, right? So, like, you can't have your body healthy without a healthy mouth, and you can't have your mouth healthy without a healthy body. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's all connected,
It's
right?
all connected. That's like
Yeah.
my favorite thing to say. And yeah, even though we focus on things as parts, it's really to drive home the point that it all needs to work as one, you
Yeah.
know.
So I think now's a good time to, like, I could sit here and talk about toothpaste for 5 hours. I like to talk a lot, and especially on this topic, but I want to start to just, like, really break it down a little bit more of a microscopic view of some of the things we're concerned about in toothpaste. And then, also to say, like, one of the other issues that we discussed in our early conversations was like the waste issue of toothpaste tubes. Um, you know, they're in plastic tubes for one, but also, like, where do they go when we're done? You throw it in the trash, it's in a landfill. That's an additional concern we had, not really related to, like, the plastic part relates to your health, but just one other thing that we'll kind of bring up later in the podcast. But as we kind of dive through the ingredients that we want to share, like you said yourself, like you hadn't really critically looked at the ingredients, even though you were of toothpaste, the ingredients of toothpaste, even though you've been critically looking at food ingredients for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things to talk about, I think the number one, the number one ingredient that's going to be discussed is always going to be fluoride. Okay, so I think it's important just to kind of hit on some of these ingredients and just discuss them, give our opinion, our understanding, share the knowledge of where we stand.
Yeah.
Fluoride. We don't want our kids to get cavities, right? Fluoride is included in toothpaste to make teeth get really to help keep the hardness of the enamel. It helps in case you've lost the mineral content in your enamel. Fluoride helps remineralize the teeth. Fluoride can combine with other compounds in your mouth, and it can be soaked back into the tooth. And so a cavity starts as a soft spot on the tooth for most people that grows and grows and grows until it caves in. And when these soft spots are early, they're soft because the minerals are lost in the tooth, and the fluoride helps remineralize the tooth. So this has been shown in the lab. I believe it. I think the research is very clear. Like, there's good benchtop studies that show fluoride can remineralize teeth. Like, in an acid environment, you could soften a tooth, introduce fluoride, and make a tooth hard again, thus preventing a cavity, in theory. Now, the problem with this is at what cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the debate comes in with fluoride. And as a dentist, I just share my personal experience. I went through dental school in the early 2000s, like 20 years ago, right? This, for anyone that's listening, that's my perspective. And I had mentors and teachers that said fluoride got introduced and it did help reduce cavities in my population. And I don't think they were lying. I think they were being honest. I think that for my teachers at that time, they were practicing in the heyday of like 60s and 70s of like really when all the food was starting to really change over,
Mm-hmm.
and cavities rates were skyrocketing, and and they were really, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose. They're like looking for something to help, right? So like finally they're given some ingredient they can preach that's going to help. But I think the reality is, like, at what cost is the thing that wasn't discussed. Like, when I'm going through school, there's zero conversation about, are there any risks of this ingredient
Mm-hmm.
in the toothpaste or in the varnish that we like paint on the teeth. And my perspective has just changed over time. I think that there's a couple big factors. Like, I've seen research that shows, okay, fluoride is an endocrine disruptor, especially like with thyroid hormone, but other hormones. I mean, these are powerful substances that our body makes and uses to regulate the system,
Mm-hmm.
and fluoride is interfering with them. That's a concern. There's studies about how it might impact IQ as it relates to, I mean, just to say it plainly, yeah, if it's impacting your IQ, I mean, hey, that's a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So I myself have like really changed from 20 years ago to now, to like I think you've really impacted me as far as as far as the foods I eat, the ingredients I use, the substances I use, and fluoride started to land on my radar as like a big concern.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have like a perspective on fluoride you want to share.
Yeah, well, I think, the two places that, I mean, really the biggest place people get fluoride is out of the water. And I think most people don't realize the reason it's in the water. And, that's because it's a byproduct, it's a manufacturing byproduct. And all of these companies had waste that they didn't know what to do with. So they did some research. They showed that it would remineralize a tooth. And then they convinced the government to essentially infuse it into the water at really high quantities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and again, there were no long-term studies done, right? So like this is what happens all the time is like the company does the research, there's no like question about it, and then all of a sudden we have this. Now we've had years and years and years of this in our water system, and you're bathing in it, you're drinking it, and then from that, they went to the all the dental schools, and dental products were created and all of that, right? So we get it in our water, we get it in our toothpaste, and so it's not a small amount, is my point. You're getting it daily in your toothpaste. Maybe the dentist is also doing some fluoride varnish at the dentist's office whenever you go in, and you're drinking it and bathing in it every day. So what has been recognized over time, there have been groups that started studying it and saying, like you said, that it is an endocrine disruptor. It is lowering children's IQs. And they're actually, just this last week, there was a court case that was won. A judge decided that the levels are way too high in our water system, so the EPA is going to have to completely redo the guidelines for that in the water. I hope they take it all the way out, but who knows? So I think from what you were saying, I think that yes, it's like all of this stuff, you can kind of come up with a benefit on one side, but like we're talking about, it's all connected, and all of these little things add up over time to either help or hurt you.
Yeah.
And I think it's always like a risk benefit analysis, right? So like we said, people don't want to get cavities, but also you don't want to have a thyroid problem.
Yeah.
You don't want your children's IQ to drop. They're actually reducing milestones for children right now, like on a federal level, because kids are not hitting milestones the same way they used to. Like this stuff is impacting us, right? So and like we said, like every little change you can make just to take one of these things out, if you can, and it is probably a good step to make. And so I think it's kind of, if you can find an alternative, which we already know there are alternatives to fluoride, and we also just like a highly rich mineral diet will help with that stuff too. So I think there's this idea that unless you put something directly on the tooth, or directly on whatever body part you're trying to fix, that you're not going to be able to fix it. And that's not how it works, right? It's you eat, your food gets broken down, and those nutrients move around your body, and they create your blood, they create your eyes, they create your thoughts, your neurotransmitters, all of this stuff, your hormones. So there are other ways to affect the remineralization of your teeth that are not going to also damage the system.
Yeah, there's a couple points in there, I feel like, last topics I want to talk about with fluoride. This is like I don't know, it's kind of like a overriding thought or principle in life. Something we've discussed is that, okay, the industrial people that offered fluoride to the different like towns and the governments and said, I think they were well intentioned. Like, I don't think they did it to like lower IQs and mess with people's thyroid. They're trying to help with a problem. But the issue is, for one, I've been seeing people losing teeth for my whole career. I'm a specialist in the replacement of missing teeth. So it's like, that is my target population, right? And I have come to the realization that it doesn't matter how much fluoride I paint on the teeth or use prescription strength fluoride toothpaste, like there's fundamentally something wrong with their system and they keep losing teeth. So I'm sorry, but it's not a magic bullet, right? And then this is, I think, the big topic that I really, something we talk about a lot is that like industry doesn't come up with something that saves us, right? It's not like, hey, let's petition the government to start changing the way they allow products to be packaged and sold and used. It's about changing the diet. It's about the person or the patient going, wait a minute, there's something wrong with my diet, my exercise, my holistic health. Like that's the real conversation and the real fix, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the product, it's the process. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I mean, you need to brush your teeth, right? Like,
mhm.
um, and just the by nature of the modern lifestyle we live, like it's important to brush the remnants of food off of your teeth, right? But like you're saying, that is one part of the picture. It's better if that product that you're brushing your teeth with is not also poisoning you. But that is not what's going to save your teeth. That one thing, if you brush your teeth all day and night and you eat Doritos 24 hours a day, like you will lose all of your teeth,
For sure.
or if you smoke meth, you're going to lose all your teeth. Doesn't matter if you floss and brush every day,
Yeah,
right? So
100%.
I think, that, when we look at some of this stuff, we're looking at it kind of in a vacuum. Like fluoride is this thing that this is what you need to have harder, stronger teeth. And like, no, it's like a supplement, it's the same. It's kind of the same way I think about all supplements. Like you can target supplement for something if you're missing something in your diet. But if your whole diet is not a whole foods diet, like that supplement is going to do nothing,
Yeah.
right? It has to work in conjunction with a bigger plan, like a more well-rounded, um, like eating, drinking, like exercise, all of that together. And then you can add in like the fluoride I mean, ideally not fluoride in this case, but whatever the supplement is
Hmm.
can be more effective and be that like last little support for the body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, it rounds out the fluoride conversation nicely. Okay. We've highlighted the concerns, just a couple of the concerns as it relates to overall health, and given our perspective about, like, from the dentist, I don't think it's saving everyone's teeth. So does it really even need to be used at all? And there are alternatives.
Yeah.
So there are some other ingredients I think we should discuss, or like categories of ingredients. So let's kind of move on to the next one. And I think the next one is basically like foaming ingredients. When you brush your teeth, they add compounds in there to make it kind of like lather up and stick around so that you can start in one corner of your mouth, work all the way around, and get back, and you still have this foam in your mouth. And these things are, for example, like a very common is sodium lauryl sulfate,
Mm-hmm.
or SLS. It's in tons of hygiene products, hair, lotions, and toothpaste. And it has zero therapeutic benefit. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not for cavities, it's not for gum disease. I mean, it's literally just like a convenience compound to make it foam. And this is a very important one to highlight because when you study like oral pathology or abnormal findings in the mouth,
Mm-hmm.
the most common abnormal finding in the mouth is like a recurrent small ulcer
Mm-hmm.
that's on the roof of the mouth, the tongue, inside the lips. It's everywhere. I mean, as a dentist that's been looking in mouths, I see it all the time. I've seen it my whole career. And come to find out, the most common cause of these ulcers is the foaming ingredient that's included in many toothpaste. So it's just an example of like literally the most common pathology is caused by a compound that's added for convenience. So I think that's one to really, if this is an educational, listen for a lot of people, like that's another ingredient. Flip your tube over, look for SLS or sodium lauryl sulfate or anything that kind of sounds like that. Like they'll change the ending of those words, sodium lauryl and sulfate, sulfonic acid, so
Mm-hmm.
and strike it off. It's
Yeah.
not needed. And so that's just like foaming ingredients in general. um, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah. And just to one quick point there is, some people might say, like, well, I mean, an ulcer is not that big of a deal. But like these little signals from your body, you may be getting this like tiny ulcer, but that is inflammation. It's an inflammatory signal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's just what you can see. And over time, like we say, like your body is going to send you stronger and stronger signals. So if you ignore the one thing, it will turn into something else. So you know, um, anytime you're getting a negative reaction from the body, it's important to pay attention to, even if it's small, because it always starts out small. It's a cough, it's a headache, it's a stomach ache, right?
Yeah.
It turns into something bigger. Another one that's been in the news a ton recently is titanium dioxide, the whitening agent that they put in. And I think as we go through some of these things, the reason that all these ingredients are in there are for its thing like titanium dioxide. It's a whitening agent. It's used in paint thinner.
Yeah, not
And
whitening your teeth,
no,
whitening to make the toothpaste
right,
color white and not like some gray, greenish, or some off, that would not look pleasing to the eye.
right, and like the goal is they want something that's temperature controlled. They want something that has the right consistency that comes out in the on the toothbrush. They want something that has a good flavor because they want you coming back for more and more and more. And I mean, those are just the things that are taken into consideration, right? Like shelf life, all that stuff. And the tube is what's always been used, right? So they want a specific consistency. So a lot of things are added in there for not for therapeutic benefit, but for sales purposes, essentially,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, a lot these are businesses, but so anyways, titanium dioxide is a whitening agent. It's carcinogenic, and it's actually been in the news a ton. It was that news story about like it's in Skittles, but it's in a zillion
Yeah.
things.
It was
And
the ingredient for, I can't remember if there's like an S on Skittles or like the M on M&Ms, and like it's used. It's literally like a white paint, right?
mm-hmm,
So if they're like gonna spray paint the top of the candy with something white to do like a logo or a letter,
mm-hmm,
that's where it's used.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's a paint additive. So I mean, no therapeutic benefit, significant risk to because you're using it every day, all the time. This cumulative adding up of a toxic compound, like definitely, and just while it's on my mind, that was one of the things when we switched. I think the first natural toothpaste I used,
Mm-hmm.
it was very popular. I don't feel like I need to call the name out or anything, but it's like the biggest alternative. Like when
Mm-hmm.
someone switches away from fluoride or they say, I'm going to change my toothpaste, it's probably the biggest
Mm-hmm.
brand that's, you know, captured this market. And they were using titanium dioxide from day one. Now I see they've cut it out, but like just as an example of like why this educational component is good, I think that, yeah, it's an important one to highlight.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there was more to add on that other than like don't put that in. Don't take a toothpaste that has titanium dioxide in it.
Yeah, that one's unnecessary. The other common ones are the gums that are used as preservatives. So xanthan gum, carrageenan. Um,
Irish moss, or yeah, I think it's called Irish moss, but which is essentially an example of how they'll take gum and give it a different name and then try to rebrand it as like, well, it comes from seaweed and it's natural, but it's a gum, right? So
yeah, yeah. And so gums are by nature they're essentially a preservative. They a lot of them are like emulsifiers. They they make the consistency better.
mhm.
But it's a preservative. So like just by nature of what it is, you think about the oral microbiome, the gut microbiome, they're connected. And that is the opposite of what you want to be putting into your gut because, everything in your, when food or any product goes through your digestive system, right, it starts in your mouth, you chew, it prompts your stomach acid to kind of fire up so that it can break everything down into tiny, tiny pieces and then be absorbed into your intestinal system. And if you have an ingredient, an agent of a product that is by nature a preservative, you're backing that system up. And when things can't be broken down all the way, that it just creates more of an opportunity for an inflammatory process to begin. So, the argument for a lot of this stuff, and this is how everything in like the FDA is passed and whatever is, they have this level at which, there's like a minimum risk to humans, right? This like low tolerance, this small amount is okay, and I'm forgetting what it's specifically called, but and so the way that all this stuff gets kind of like filtered into our system is with this rubric of saying like this small amount isn't going to hurt a human.
Yeah.
So
usually because it didn't hurt a rat in a lab.
Right.
What we think is a
At a tiny amount. But yeah. These are like, if you think about this, they're not studying it for 80 years on end, and they're not, it's not the cumulative effect that it has on our bodies over time. Like they're studying this tiny amount, but then you think about how much you're doing it on a regular basis, and it's not that tiny amount because it adds up. So yeah, there's gums in lots of products, but again, it's unnecessary. It's arguably not great for your gut microbiome, and like we said before, it's all connected. So if it's not good for one part, it's not good for any of it. And that's just kind of how I look at the body. It's one big whole. Mm-hmm. So gums are another one.
I want to just share real quick on gums. Like I didn't know anything. You knew so much more about gums because you cook all the food in our house and you have a background in integrative nutrition. I didn't know nothing about gums as a dentist, right? Mm-hmm. Like you see cellulose gum or carrageenan or all these things on toothpaste, and I started recognizing what it was. So as I started researching it, like the light bulb that went off with me is like gums are added into things like gel. A great analogy is like put in Jello to give it that like cool, like gelatinous, like when you put like a tub of Jello in the fridge, it's like, you can see through it and it looks like it's perfectly mixed and there's no like layering of the material. Like it's just perfectly mixed. Mm-hmm. And it maintains that perfect mixture when you take it out of the fridge and you put it on the counter. And like, to me, that was a big analogy when I was like, oh, it's like Jello. Because if you took like a gel toothpaste at like a giant quantity and put it into that same tub that the Jello's in, it's going to look pretty similar, mm-hmm. whether you put it in the fridge or on the counter. And so that was like a thing for me to recognize, like why it's added, what it's doing. Mm-hmm. And I just, again, as someone that wasn't really reading ingredient labels forever, it's like, oh, so there you go. It's one of these convenience compounds, right?
And there's actually, there was a recent study out of Europe that tied xanthan gum. Well, it was a study on multiple different gums, but xanthan gum was in there. And it had a strong correlation to diabetes risk. Basically, it increased diabetes risk in a population of people that they studied, those that used it and those that didn't. So it's affecting the gut is the bottom line. What it's doing there is affecting your absorption and your nutrient absorption and your insulin sensitivity, and that insulin sensitivity is really at the root cause of almost every single chronic disease you can think of.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone. So, again, if you brush your teeth with something with xanthan gum in it one day, sure, you're probably going to be fine, right? But, these things add up, right? And it's like, it's xanthan gum and it's titanium dioxide and it's the foaming agents and, whatever else other chemicals they put in there. It's not just one thing, right? It's all of these things. And these things aren't being studied all together, right? They're not like loading all these up and then being like, what does this do to the body?
Yep.
In addition to the pesticides in your food and the fluoride in your water. I mean, it all adds up. So,
and gums, I would say especially, okay, you brush your teeth in the morning with the toothpaste with gums in it. And then you have a coffee and you put almond milk in it with gum in it. Yeah. Then you have like a breakfast bar that has gum in it. Then you have something, another round of coffee again, right? And then you have like something at lunch with gum in it. Like most things in packages that are not whole foods have gums in it. So it's one of those ingredients that you go, holy crap, this is everywhere. No wonder this is a giant industry, because it's being used in the vast majority of all food products and toothpaste.
Yes, totally.
So interesting.
So what are the other ones? Like citric acid, that's a preservative,
Preservatives.
which is actually mold.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a black mold. People think it's lemon or something. It's not. It's a disgusting process, where most of it comes from. Again, preservatives is the same thing. It's like the reason that we preserve things on when we're selling products in a store is for shelf life.
Yeah.
It's not because it's good for you. And that is one of the reasons why eating natural whole foods is so important and so much better, because it's broken down in exactly how it's supposed to, and the time that it's supposed to. The body knows what to do with it. There's nothing impeding the process, so nothing inflammatory impeding the process. So preservatives are kind of antithetical to what you're trying to do when you're eating or consuming or putting things into your body.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so I think that the next category would be sweeteners,
mm-hmm.
which is like a very, like, there's probably a ton of debate about this, and it's definitely just one of those like common sense conversations that comes up after if you're like us and you want to talk about toothpaste a bunch.
Yes.
It's like, wait, why is the toothpaste sweet? Oh, really, it's like, maybe as, okay, when you have little kids, you want them to like it, like, so that they'll use it. But then, of course, then you got to put the caveat of, well, if they start eating it because it tastes so good, call the poison control hotline because it's actually toxic. But like, this is an interesting one, because essentially you're going to find it in the category of like xylitol, sugar alcohols, sorbitol, erythritol. Those are the xylitol, sorbitol, erythritol. And there is like a very like a strong effort to like have one be good and two be bad, or like depending on various people that like have products, like they want to like say one's good, one's not. But like, it's a sugar alcohol, and xylitol I think is the most hotly debated one in the dental world. So I just kind of like share it from my dentist perspective. I think that's like the nice thing about this conversation is that like I like to come at it from the dentist thing, mm-hmm. and I like to have you come at it from the nutrition side, right? Mm-hmm. And systemic health. Mm-hmm. I think that filters through things nicely. That's relatable to people that are listening. Mm-hmm. So like, as a dentist, like, yeah, hey, we basically meet people who have cavities all the time, and we're trying to assess, are they at high risk of more cavities, medium risk, low risk, like what? And then we come up with a diagnosis, and that helps us come up with, well, here's your regimen. You should use this type of toothpaste, and in all of you should chew gum, you should use mouth rinses. And xylitol was one that like I used for years as I was like just on the, here's my recommendations from some key papers that have been put out in the dental community. Mm-hmm. Like some very super smart people have gone through here, analyzed the research, and they say, if you have someone with high risk of cavities, then you should do A, B, C, X, Y, Z to help reduce their risk. And xylitol was like at the top. Use gum with xylitol, use mouth rinse with xylitol, because it's very antibacterial. Mm-hmm. And it's not referenced in the dental world as a sweetener, but it is a sweetener. Mm-hmm. And it's added to sweeten things just as much as it's added to like kill bacteria, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just, I like to be curious about stuff. And through all of this, investigation and talking we've done, is like, you go back and you find out the paper that recommends using xylitol. Well, who did they reference? And they reference a paper that was put out like 20 years ago in the Journal of the American Dental Association that's saying like, hey, xylitol is great. It's wonderful for, reducing the risk of cavities. And you look at the authors, they're not dentists, they're pain control specialists, and they just happen to also have like a strong association with a consultancy group that helps industrial companies get into like, healthcare industry. Mm-hmm. So it's just a curiosity that takes over and goes, well, that's an interesting like kind of conflict of interest, almost, if you'd say. And so from a dentist perspective, like, yeah, it's antibacterial. Okay, it kills this bacteria that we know causes cavities. So maybe that's good. But then it leaves the door open for like, man, but now these other sugar alcohols are being linked with like increased risk of heart disease and heart attack. And when I approach you about it, I'm like, what is a sugar alcohol? How is this made? I like to think it's helpful for you to share like maybe like how the lens that you might see it as like a processed food, or like, how do you look at sugar alcohols?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of sugar alcohols. I think that it's the same lens I view all food. If it's not a whole food, then it's questionable, just by nature of it. And xylitol is, it comes from a plant, but it's very processed to get the sugar alcohol out, right? And I, I won't buy any food product with xylitol. I will not purchase for our family. And that's just how it's always been. So it doesn't make sense to me to then say it's okay in a toothpaste. I also just personally can't stand the taste of it. There's something that it triggers me, gives me like an immediate headache. So that's always been a red flag for me. I think some people tolerate it fine. But again, it's like all this stuff isn't necessary. I think the research is, at best it's unclear.
Yeah,
At worst it's not helping at all. It might be sweetening it for people that want like a sweet flavor, or the industry thinks wants a sweet flavor. I don't know, but yeah, again, it just feels unnecessary. And I don't. The therapeutic benefit is questionable, like very questionable. And yeah, I just look at it through the kind of the food lens, because I think when you're putting something in your mouth and swallowing you have to be okay with it as part of your oral microbiome and your gut microbiome. And I am not okay with it
yeah,
in either
yeah. I
category.
think that like the persisting recommendation is about like, well, there's research that shows it's good for your oral microbiome, and we both think that's an important part of health is your oral microbiome. But again, it comes down to this thing of like, well, we want you to clean your mouth, of course, brush and floss your teeth, and get your whole body health in an optimum position. And the microbiome can basically, your body is smart. It can heal itself. It can regulate itself. Like, so again, it's not like this silver bullet compound that's going to like, oh gosh, like the fluoride. Like, thank God for fluoride. Like, we never saw a cavity again once we introduced it. I
Right.
look at xylitol the same thing. Like, it's a sweetener. That's where I've landed on it. It's a sweetener because like people like sweet things,
Mm-hmm.
and it does something in your brain that makes you go, okay, I can do this. I can brush with this for 2 minutes. It's sweet. So I mean, that's how I land on xylitol right now. And all this stuff, I think we keep a open mind to every single ingredient that's
Sure.
used, and we might change our opinion one day, and maybe xylitol is not looking good for me, but
Me
I
neither.
mean, it's basically really because of the stuff that you educated me on regarding like processed food product and how these things are, how they actually like impact the body.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing to remember too is like I have seen in my lifetime, not that long, but like there's always some sweetener that industry is trying to promote as a sugar alternative, because at any moment in time, sugar has been demonized one way or the other, and the sugar industry like fights that hard. So first it was like aspartame, or however you say
Mm-hmm.
that, um, carcinogenic eventually is what we found out. And it's like sucralose. I mean, there's been a bunch of them: xylitol, erythritol. They're corn byproducts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And that's, it's like industry is always looking at a way, business, like innovators, whatever. It's not like an evil thing, but they're always looking at like, how can we create something as like an alternative that people will like, this is new, and it's not sugar, but it's sweet. And so anyways, I've just seen too many times in this category and other categories where it's like this alternative that's supposed to be like, it's not supposed to spike your blood sugar, and it's actually antibacterial and all this stuff. They put it in different categories to kind of like prove that it's better, but it's really a really processed food.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and that is where we get in trouble with adding that kind of stuff into our diet. I mean, and the other point here is, if all of these things were so good, then cavities would be going down, and cavities have skyrocketed. I mean, they're worse than ever, right?
Yeah.
So all of these kind of newer, like, innovative products, or not products, but ingredients,
compounds, ingredients,
right, that are they're not doing what they've kind of said they're going to do, right? And again, because nothing's a silver bullet, that's also a major point to have here, right? Like, you can't just put fluoride in toothpaste and think that everybody's going to stop getting cavities. Like, the diet is what needs to be changed, right? And like movement practices and all of that stuff. So but I guess going back to what I was saying, I just think I've seen this happen with other like different sugar alcohols and different sugar alternatives enough to where, if you wait long enough, the research comes out and it's like, no, this is actually there. Maybe it is antibacterial, but it also is causing heart problems or whatever else, So it's kind of like, it's just unnecessary.
Yeah, and every single one of those sugar alternatives you went through in your comments there have had a history in toothpaste. And it's just, at the bottom line is, let's share our personal experience. Our kids do not use a sweet toothpaste. Like, we don't use a sweet toothpaste. And that's one of the first things. It has been the number one thing that we've observed when we've introduced like a new toothpaste to somebody. And we're like, hey, try this. The first thing out of their mouth is like, oh, it's like salty and not sweet. Mm-hmm. It's salty and not sweet, because we've all been like programmed that toothpaste should be sweet. And it's like, okay, I just think it's a wonderful thing to talk about, because it impacts us all. And at the end of the day, we are the individuals that make these decisions. No regulatory body is going to save us. No one's going to save our teeth. No one's going to come save your teeth or prevent you from having gum disease. Mm-hmm. It's about the holistic health, and you got to put all these things in, and one step at a time over a long time period, you can come up with a plan that improves your health and helps reduce your risk of tooth loss. And you don't have to rely on these ingredients or compounds that could be hurting you.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that we can round out the ingredient concern list, because there's lots of them, with anything that's like a petroleum product. I mean, like, really, like, you'll see things abbreviated like PEG12, or even like food dyes, like, I don't know which colors, but like in some of the colored toothpaste, they might have like a food dye in there. Those things are not needed. I think that most people can understand that those products are not going to like reduce your risk of cavities or gum disease. All right, so we basically have gone through many ingredients and various concerns we have with some of them, and why we have concerns. And so, the point is really just to raise awareness and help people empower themselves to make decisions to evaluate, their products, right?
Yeah.
And so we've gone through like the list of what are potentially like toxic compounds, and now there's another element that it relates to the abrasivity of the toothpaste. Mm-hmm. And this is something, as a dentist, that I have fixed or restored or repaired, I mean, thousands of times, is this abrasivity issue, mm-hmm. where we put abrasives in toothpaste to help get the film off of our teeth. Like, you think about like sandpaper, like fine, medium, and coarse, mm-hmm. right? And in toothpaste, you can find these various levels of abrasivity in toothpaste. Mm-hmm. And that's a legitimate concern for, I think, everyone that is using toothpaste, which is all of us, right? So the reference is always, well, is this abrasive more abrasive than enamel or less, right? And they essentially like work on these compounds to make them equally abrasive as enamel. But the issue is down near your gums, you either have root surface of your tooth exposed, or that's a very thin part of enamel. And over time, the enamel goes away, and now you could be abrading the kind of inside of the tooth. And what happens is you carve these notches out in your teeth, and now the dentist says, hey, this little, it almost feels like a little chipped out area of your tooth. It's a sensitive area. We need to put like a filling on it or do like a gum graft from, you could have recession. And all this to just say is there is a significant component with toothpaste when it comes to abrasivity that is not frequently discussed. But I mean, there's a whole diagnosis called toothpaste abuse in the dental community. So,
What are some of the abrasives that are typically used in toothpaste?
most commonly are going to be like silica particles, which are literally like sandpaper, right? So, and then you're going to see things like calcium carbonate as an alternative, which is it's similar in abrasivity to silica, but it's an alternative, right? So it's a way to try to do something different, which I applaud. But the issue with that is that's essentially like Tums, right? It's like there's concerns with how that would impact like your digestive system when you're using it every day. But again, that's an alternative. Baking soda is frequently used, and that to me has the very best abrasivity compound, or index, if you will. There is some good research that lists all these different toothpastes and how abrasive they are, and just plain baking soda scored the best.
What about clays? Because I know a lot of the more holistic brands use clays, and that's something that we kind of looked into a little bit. And what are those more abrasive than, say, baking soda?
Yeah, so more abrasive than baking soda, but definitely a step in the right direction. And I think really overall, like I I applaud all the new companies that have tried to come up with something new. It's not an easy endeavor.
Yeah.
And that is an example of, hey, that's a good option. Like, I think it's better, right? So it may be not the best, but it's better. And so I do applaud people for using that. And there's maybe some other benefits of clays and things like that. There's also like some risks about like heavy metals that are found in the clays and where they're being sourced and how they're being processed. But again, I think that's like there maybe could be good, better, best analogies, and that's my current understanding of it. Yeah, so maybe a better choice than silica. And then you'll see like hydroxyapatite is a common. They're maybe trying to use it as a remineralizing, meaning specifically microhydroxyapatite. And the issue with that is it's not getting into the teeth. It's not doing anything for remineralizing, but it's abrasive. And so like that was one of the concerns I had when I personally was trying new toothpaste out, was I could feel the high abrasivity of these toothpaste. I could literally, just look at my teeth so carefully. And I came to find out that microhydroxyapatite is just crushed bone particles, which is abrasive. So maybe that's like another one to be aware of, because it could be touted as like the next great thing, but I think, in my opinion, it's not. Yeah, so those are like some examples of the abrasivity compounds used, and it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be aware of about what's in your toothpaste, as we've been talking about this whole time. And we haven't even gotten to, and we're not going to get to in this conversation, the myriad of other ingredients that can be in toothpaste that are problematic. There's like triglycerin and all these other chemical additives that you would notice on, say, conventional toothpaste as well. And as we dove into this topic and started researching it for ourselves, like we were talking about, it coincided with, you were doing your integrative and biological dentistry certification, and I had been in the nutrition space for a while. And as we were trying to find something that worked for us, we just, we couldn't find anything. and the timing was interesting. And basically we just were like, well, you're a dentist, and we combined know plenty about the body. Like, maybe we can make something that we feel like works better for us. And so we started doing that, and we created a product, a toothpaste that we're really excited about, and we've been using for the last couple of years. Um, and it was really just a product of us having extremely high standards for what we're willing to put in our bodies and our children's bodies, and just kind of going from there. So the point that we started out was so high, which is why it took us so long, other than just the general, learning to create a product. That's not something we'd ever done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was really, neither of us we had things that neither of us were willing to compromise on. And so, we wanted something that was non-toxic, and 100% non-toxic. We didn't want to use preservatives. We wanted the ingredients to be supportive of the oral and the gut microbiome, and to be organic or regenerative, or just to preclude any type of pesticides or any of that stuff. And we wanted it to be remineralizing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started there, and we started experimenting with different ingredients, and really we started kind of thinking like, well, what's supportive of the oral and gut microbiome? Like, it's whole foods, right? So we started there. That was kind of our starting point, and then combined the knowledge of abrasives and what you need to clean your teeth. And the other thing, as the conversation progressed, was we, you start to realize that the reason that they put all this stuff in is for temperature, consistency, sales, like we were talking about before. And eventually you come to the point of like, well, what are we going to sell it in, right? You have to get it to the people, and there has to be some sort of delivery system. And tubes, when we started looking into that as a way to deliver it, we looked it up, and there's 1.5 billion toothpaste tubes thrown away into landfills every single year in the world. In the United States alone, it's 400 million. And so that was really eye-opening. And we just kind of thought, maybe there's a more sustainable way to do this. And also, I hate the way the toothpaste tube looks in the bathroom. I think it's so ugly. I'm always trying to shove it in a drawer, and like, but you need it constantly. So it's just annoying to take in and out. And then someone inevitably doesn't care as much as me. And so the toothpaste is just like, out everywhere. So I thought at the beginning, we talked about like, maybe we can make it aesthetically pleasing. Maybe we can make it pretty. Maybe you can put it in some kind of a container that you like to have on your counter, like a pretty cream, or a pretty, like for women anyways, like your pretty jars that you have out. So that's kind of the point at which we started. And it took a long time, but we essentially were able to hit all of those points, and create something that we love using, we love that our kids use, and yeah, we feel really good about. So our toothpaste has ended up with 4 ingredients in it. We can go through each of those. Do you want to go through each one?
Sure, be happy to.
Mm-hmm.
So, starting with baking soda, the primary ingredient, if you will, we've sourced that from what we think is the very best place to source baking soda from. Not only like where it's retrieved from, but how it's processed afterwards. And so we're really pleased that we found a producer of baking soda that aligns with our values, not using chemicals to make this. So that was, something that neither of us had ever done, and another rabbit hole to go down. But it was very fruitful, because you find another company who they learn like what we're doing, and they're super excited to align with us, because they also have this mission of they're trying to produce baking soda in the healthiest way possible. And so this was like, that was a great kind of marriage of two companies, if you will. Baking soda is wonderful. It balances the pH in the body. It is abrasive enough to remove plaque off of your teeth, without taking away enamel and denting the inside layers of the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main ingredient. The second one would be coconut oil. And again, as you mentioned, always organic.
Mm-hmm.
And coconut oil is wonderful because it's like a natural, almost like soap type process in your mouth without, needing any of these foaming agents or anything like that. So it's supportive of the microbiome, being an organic food product.
Mm-hmm.
As you've really helped educate me about how eating the right diet and foods is really what supports the microbiome more than any like particular product or supplement or chemical or anything.
Right.
It's so coconut oil is the second biggest ingredient in our toothpaste, and it again is just supportive of the microbiome. Something that like you commented on right away, and what we've heard from a lot of our other friends and family that have used it, is it's a moisturizing component to the coconut oil, which is great because dry mouth is terrible for your mouth. It really breeds for the bad bacteria. So coconut oil does that as well.
Yeah, it promotes saliva, which promotes a kind of the balance of bacteria that you want in your mouth. So, which is very different from most toothpaste. Most when you brush your teeth with most other toothpaste, it usually has mint,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little bit drying in and of itself. And that's something that you notice really immediately with ours is that your mouth just feels a lot more moist and you almost have to spit a lot more, but that is actually protecting your teeth.
Yeah, I love using the analogy about 30 years ago, we were all washing our faces with Clearasil and these heavy alcohol containing face washes.
Mm-hmm.
Toothpaste is still on that bandwagon. They haven't gotten off of that, right? Because these mint flavorings are really produced with heavy alcohol content. And that's why it makes you have this like, minty fresh feeling. That's just alcohol that's drying you out. It's been shown to potentially kill the good bacteria in your mouth. So yeah, that's wraps up the coconut oil part,
Mm-hmm.
which is a major part of the therapeutic aspect of our toothpaste. Cacao butter is the next one, and that was a really wonderful inclusion into the recipe. It's a superfood. You'll hear it referred to as a superfood because it's just packed full of antioxidants. It helps like with the texture of the toothpaste itself, and it even has a compound called theobromine in it, which has been proven to be great for remineralizing the teeth. So we don't have fluoride, so it's nice to have another remineralizing agent in lieu of fluoride. Even if it's in trace amounts, it's coming from a superfood product. Like we feel great about that.
Yeah.
Lastly, would be nanohydroxyapatite. We went back and forth on this a lot, and as far as what type of hydroxyapatite to use, and we really wanted to have something that was remineralizing. As a dentist, I'm still seeing cavities every day in healthy people that are really like ourselves, working to, be healthy and do all the right things. So having a small percentage of nanohydroxyapatite, it definitely has been proven to remineralize teeth. It makes me feel great about my teeth and my kids' teeth that there's some extra protection there, and it is non-abrasive. So like it's not the type of hydroxyapatite that's going to scratch your teeth. It has therapeutic benefit, and I like to like say that after we've read through the four ingredients because every single one of our ingredients has a therapeutic benefit. And this is like something that I have started to almost harp on as I keep reading toothpaste tubes. All these things that are in there that have no therapeutic benefit, they're only convenience compounds. They really don't have a place for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the four ingredients are really simple to understand, which is great. There's no question about what's in it. It's supportive to the oral and gut microbiome. There's no preservatives. We were able to hit all of our really high standards that we set out with from the beginning. And then what we ended up with the delivery system, the container, is also really cool too. We created this handmade ceramic container, or the original ones are going to be handmade.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, it's from clay, it's from the earth, so it can go back to the earth. But it's you essentially, the toothpaste comes in a compostable package. So the package can be just thrown right in the compost back to the earth. You express the toothpaste into the container that you have to buy one time. So you get to keep this like pretty container out on your bathroom counter. It has a lid, and then there's a little bamboo spatula that you use to spread the toothpaste onto your toothbrush. And that just lives in the container. And it's a really simple, it's different. It's a different delivery system than everybody's used to, right? It's not a tube, you're not squeezing it out, but I find it way less messy. And I feel really good about the fact that I'm not throwing a toothpaste tube away, every month. And I think, I think they're really pretty. The ones that
Mm-hmm.
we've created are really pretty. So, um, essentially, you just rebuy the toothpaste, right? And you just
Yep.
compost
Mm-hmm.
the toothpaste package every time. And
And you can hand wash the container, right? Or dishwash. It's a ceramic, so it's
mhm,
like your plates and your dishware. It's designed to be reused over and over and over, and it has a lid on it, so it's in a clean environment in the bathroom. I mean, it was the perfect marriage of the aesthetics of the container
yeah,
that you were voicing about, but also it freed us of the reliance from some of the convenience compounds that you have to have for it to live in a tube. So it was real. That was not like an intended. We didn't realize that those two things were going to come together so wonderfully until we kind of got to the end.
yeah, yeah. So we're so excited about. I mean, it's the only thing we use. I can't even use conventional toothpaste anymore. I like was in a situation where there was like that was the only thing around recently, and I was like scraping it off of my tongue. I couldn't get it out of my mouth fast enough. And so we're just really excited to get this out to everybody. So if you're interested, after we've had this long conversation, our Instagram is at Yin and Fang. The link in the bio will get you to the website. The website is yinandfang.com. And we are going to be launching soon. So as of the date of this conversation, we are haven't launched yet, but it's coming very, very soon. So
Mm-hmm.
if you go to the website at yinandfang.com, you can put your email in. You'll be on our email list, where we'll make announcements for the pre-sale launch. And like I said before, we have like our beginning launch is going to be these really pretty handmade ceramic containers, and it's a really limited quantity. So you definitely want to get on the list,
Mm-hmm.
I think. It's the one that I have and I love it. And then, yeah, and that will keep you posted for how to sign up or subscribe to if you want a subscription or whatever it is you end up deciding you need for you and your family. And we can't wait to get it out.
Yeah, this has been super fun. This has been a great conversation about toothpaste, and we hope everyone really enjoyed it. And just as a great reminder for everyone else, your toothpaste does not have to be toxic, it does not have to be sweet, and we really hope you check out our product because we know you'll love it.